Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles. My name is Danny De Lillo and I'm here with the wonderful Sarah with her fantastic feature, #like. Let's take a look at a clip. Sarah, I wish I could hug you and say how wonderful your film was, but I'll do it from a virtual distance. Thank you so much for #like. What a flipping amazing film, as we say in England. For those that haven't seen it, tell us tell us a brief synopsis of your film.
Okay. Well, so I started thinking about a film I wanted to make that would address online predation, because I've been reading a lot about it, about teens, mainly girls, some boys, who are being suckered into sort of online predation by predators. And I then saw the documentary Audrey and Rosie. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's grueling, tragic. It's all about this culture of toxic masculinity and sexism and misogyny, and just it's really heartbreaking, the stories that you hear about real girls. So I thought, how can I tell a story about this, something I care about? Because as you know, when we make a film, you're with it for many years, something I feel happy to put out into the world. But also I started thinking about it just before the Me Too movement broke. So I thought, for a feminist film, no one's going to be interested. No one's going to click that film. Maybe I shouldn't have thought that, but so I thought, let me make it a genre, a thriller, particularly as a female director. A lot of times female directors would get blocked. So I thought, let me make it genre, thriller, noir. So a kid who's at home will click on it if it's on their stream on Netflix. And then I found there are all these videos on YouTube with like 32 million hits and 45 million hits. So distributors, hear me.
Right?
But yeah, it was a project of love, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have questions for days. I really do, because there's so much in there and so much hard work that I can tell that you put into this film as well. Like, when you're seeing these really hurtful, hard documentaries of truth and things that are existing around us. I think sometimes we always think it's over there and it's not. It's going on around us, but regardless, a lot of people are going through these experiences. When was that moment when you're watching this and like, right, I have to make a film about this? When was that moment for you?
I think it's literally when Audrey and Daisy, the movie, closed, and I'd been reading these stories, and I went on Facebook and I found that, because one of the girls passed away through suicide, and I reached out through Facebook to one of the girls and just wanted to give her a hug, like a virtual hug. And I said, I'm so sorry this all happened to you. People care about you, you know. I'm getting teary thinking about it now.
I love that you've done this, and I think, I mean, it's certainly something that I've experienced and close to home to me as well. And it saddens me that it took almost like a Me Too movement to kind of almost move things forward when it's been existing since the beginning of time. And I'm so glad that you did it. But it was actually completely fascinating that you had this very, very difficult story of truth that is unfortunately universal, but the way you tied it in with this like thriller genre was just also like whoa as well. Like, I mean, it's quite amazing how you combine this together. And I think that one of the things that I love about what you did is that you kept us in that moment. You never took the camera away. You never thought this is too much for the public or the audience to perceive and take us away. You went right in there because this is the truth and this is what goes on. Was that something that was important to you, Sarah, in making this film?
Yes, I wanted it to be, I won't say painful to watch, but emotional. So
Yeah.
you felt you were with the girl, but the 2 or 3 things that I definitely didn't want to do was I didn't want the girl to be the victim, because we have all these, you know, dead girl stories or girls being pursued. I wanted the girl to be the powerhouse behind the story, to drive it, to be the protagonist, not the victim, not the subject. And she isn't always nice. That's why Sarah Rich is so phenomenal. She, you know, she talked about in our Q&A about she felt a lot of responsibility to the character to play her as a real girl. She was playing a 16, 17-year-old girl, you know, turning 17, and how she would be mourning her sister's death. And, you know, people have complicated relationships often with their siblings, and she felt a lot of guilt and she was carrying a lot of that stuff. But at the same time, I also didn't want it to be like a horror film where there's no blood, there's no guts, there's no gore. That's not what we're here for. It's a drama, that's a thriller, definitely noir. It's dark, twists and turns. You don't know where she's going. So yeah, that was important to me.
Yeah, I mean, let's speak about Sarah Rich. Like, I mean, as your protagonist, what a performance. But that, I mean, firstly, how did you discover each other? And wow, how do you feel after seeing how the way she led the film?
As one reviewer said when we played at the St. Louis Film Festival, on her bony little shoulders, she carries this film. And she's probably 100 pounds wet. She's tiny, fierce little powerhouse. But I have to give props to our male star, who is Mark Menchaca. It's really a two-hander. It's not, let's say, she stars and he stars. He had top billing because he's so accomplished, and you know, he is a real star in The Outsider and Ozark, many TV shows.
Ozark, and I'm like, he's so phenomenal, isn't he?
Phenomenal. And he writes and directs, and he's a producer on this film. So I met him first, and I met him through a director called Scott McGeehee. Actually, not through him, but at his party. And I've already been thinking about this idea, and I met Mark and I said, you are going to be perfect for this thing I'm writing. And he laughed at me and went, okay, whatever. And I said, in 6 months, I'll get back to you. Sent him the script in 6 months. And he said, this is amazing. I have to play this. He made his agent let him come, because it's just before he's going to go shoot The Outsider. And I just lost my original Rosie. So I was freaking out, and we were going to shoot, you know, very soon. And his manager said, well, I have this other girl. I don't know if you want to see her. And I was feeling a little like, oh, you're jamming someone down my throat. I don't really want, you know, because Mark. And but I said, no, sure, send me a tape. And they sent me an audition tape, and she was incredible, this audition tape. But I really wanted to see how she could be if I adjusted her, how well she took direction, you know, because young actors can be really great on an audition tape, but they're so raw. Can you reproduce it? Can you do it again and again? I knew this, you saw what she had to do in the part. She had to deliver. So I did some casting sessions and got other kids in, and she played against them. And we got Dakota Lustig, who's in it, who's another phenomenal young actor, great kid, great actor. Liz Meanders, who plays her friend, the redhead, who I love, and Jolene Marquez, incredible. Also Jeff Wincott, a little small part, but amazing. But anyway, I got her in. She worked out with the kids, and I just gave them some improvs to do. And I shouldn't call them kids, they're grown people, but to me, they're kids. They're my kids. And you know, and so she worked out with them, and what she did, she could do these. I said, okay, play it like you're drunk. Play it like you really know these people well. Play it like you've never met these people before, you know. And she did all these different adjustments, but I gave them things to do that weren't in the film, so it kept it fresh.
No, it really did. And you know, it's the relationship between you know, this very, very, you know, dark relationship that goes in so many twists and layers. I mean, it almost reminded me the same sort of like fascination that we have for like Hannibal Lecter and Clarice. You know, it had that same element of like
intimacy
and intimacy, but they played and worked so well for each other. It was like,
I know.
It was amazing. But the thing is that when I was saying about how, like, you know, you kept us in that moment, I think also you really showed like how dark it is that these like elements online and how these vulnerable young people are being exposed, and it's happening, and it exists, and it's on our computers, and it's on websites. And that was so daunting and deafening and nightmarish to even know. That was almost the hardest thing to take, was seeing that. Like, you obviously wanted to kind of showcase these true elements that obviously are existing, right?
So yeah, we went online, and my editor and I, Matt Yapel, looked at all these different websites that I'd written about when I was doing my research, where I watched adult men pursuing these young people. And you would go into the website. It was a talent website, supposedly, for kids to show their talent. And they just have their laptop open like we do now, in their bedrooms, and you'd hear their mother calling them for dinner, and they go, "I'll come in a minute." And they thought they were just performing for their friends. And you know, the internet is not a safe space, and they think it's like this intimate safe space. So yeah, it was chilling doing the research, and then recreating it. I had to cast kids, obviously, and let their parents know, you know, the subject matter of it, why I was doing it, and they allowed their children to be in it. And obviously they're not doing anything inappropriate. And that was also another challenge with the film, to show the chillingness. I also have to shout out our girl, who is the lead, who is no longer with us, the younger sister, Samantha Dunn, who's incredible. But, you know, I didn't obviously want to show any exploitation. I couldn't show nudity. I couldn't show. So a lot of it had to play out on Sarah's face, Sarah Rich's face.
Yeah.
So it would be, you'd suggest something. And in that creepy way of those, you know, 1950 noirs, where they say it's creepier not to see the monster, you know.
I mean, that's the one thing like you said, you didn't have to show us the blood for us to feel it inside of and how chilling that was. I was getting goosebumps and just watching it, because you already took us to that place. And I love that you did that without actually having to show anything. But when it came to true elements of what is happening, you put us right there, which was very, very powerful. What's amazing, Sarah, is you have a fine arts degree. So I was like, why is everything in this film so perfect? And I'm like, oh, she's got a fine arts degree, of course, you know. Makes a lot of sense. But it really was, and I felt every element was very carefully thought about. Like your locations, for example. Now you can tell us a bit about that, but your location was just like this, you know, it felt very mystical kind of place. Like how was finding the locations for you, you know, in making the film?
Yes, very, very mystically spooky and mystical. So I have a cabin upstate in Woodstock. So as all the indie filmmakers know watching this, you look to get any location you can get for free. You try and work with people you know who are around you. The DP had a place up here too. So we talked, and I said, you know, let's do this thing. And he was like, let's do a crazy horror movie. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And but then I was thinking about all this really heavy feminist stuff. So he bore with that, let's say. But I have a bomb shelter on the property that was built in the 1950s, and by one of my neighbor's grandparents. And it's the spookiest, creepiest place, but it was so tiny, you couldn't really shoot there. You couldn't get the angles you needed. So we shot entering and saw some of it. And then we cut to a garage that we had, you know, propped around. So you only saw 3 walls. So it was, you know, but it was also a creepy garage, because it's a sort of underground, and then it has a tunnel that goes to it. So yeah, like water dripping all the time in the background. I
mean, honestly, people would be creating a set like that, you know, and you had it in your own space, which is fantastic. And you mentioned your DP there. I was like, oh my goodness, even the way that it was shot was kind of chilling. Like, I mean, it would, you know, you carried us through almost like we were the, you know, the fourth wall. It was, well, it obviously, but you know, it was quite incredible how it was shot. How do you go about that as a director? I mean, you know, obviously you had a fantastic DP, but you really caught, you know, elements. And then, you know, sometimes the way you kind of brought in the closeness of what was happening was also quite chilling to experience as well.
It was, there are very few little bits that I fully storyboarded, because I also like the actors to lead the camera and have the actors be as organic as possible. But there were little storytelling plot points that we had to show, you know, like there's, I won't give it away, but there's a focus pull through the foreground to like a nail on the floor, like just little things like that you had to get, you know, and every DP is as good as his focus puller. And
Yeah.
His focus puller was amazing. And we had no money. This is like, I've directed some TV commercials, and this is probably the price of a 30-second, you know, the budget less,
Yeah.
half, you know. So we had to figure everything out. So I did know that I wanted it to feel claustrophobic and have him feel really trapped.
Yeah.
So I always said, you know, let's keep the ceiling really low, keep him
Yeah.
pressed in the corner, particularly at the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, and we had to shoot all of Mark's scenes in the 8 days. And
Oh,
then we had to do all the returns, like the cutaways, you know, like a bottle dropping or
yeah.
Sarah's reaction without him there, because we had 23 days of shooting, but we had to keep, you know, do everything on him one way. And then we returned it, you know, maybe a week or two later. So it was, you know, a real challenge too for the art department to keep everything in one place. And, you know, Sam Bader, who our art director, was great, production designer.
Yeah.
It was basically thinking about making him feel trapped in
Yeah.
this weird little one-act world that he was having with Sarah, and that everything that happened with her was outside of the frame, outside of the bomb shelter.
Yeah.
And it was very, you know, a different color cast, a different, anyway.
For any filmmaker out there, you know, I think it's fascinating to understand your process, you know, because I think sometimes you sort of, you know, you don't really realize how the magic happens. Now, obviously, there are very high stakes with your actors in this film, and for you as a director, how do you work with them? Because I mean, obviously, there's some very intense scenes. Do you kind of let them play it out? Is it rehearsal? Do you kind of edge them into that place? Like, how does it work for you as a director?
Well, I think that they were interesting working together. They had a huge mutual respect for each other and each other's way of working. Um, I was blown away by their let's say chemistry.
Yeah.
But Sarah comes from theater more. She's doing more film now, but she had come from theater. And Mark is doing tons of television and film. And television, as you know, is like boop, 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 get it, get it, get it, get it. So he was very like, give me the lines, we'll read it through. So we did a little table read together. I did a couple of table reads. And then I said, how do you want to do this? Do you want to really break down each scene with me? And they needed very little guidance. You know, there was, as Elia Kazan says, your directing is in your casting. And when I could see how they were working together, doing less is always more important. I worked a lot with the DP to show how I wanted certain things. But I like to have a very fluid set where you put the right people in place, you trust everyone, and then you step back and you make them feel safe. And then if there's any little tweaks you need to do, you just go in and just whisper in someone's ear, like, remember, you're not cold here, or remember, you are cold here. So they can layer that on. Even though they're doing the emotional work, if they just add a little bit of the cold, then, you know, that's a silly example, but that's one example. Or like Mark, here's a good one. Mark was doing something and he was like, you know, he wasn't quite sure how big to be, because he could bring it. I mean, that boy can bring it. But he was sort of underplaying it because he's playing a very macho guy who presses down his feelings. And I said, you know what, in this one scene, you have to imagine the worst thing you could ever imagine is coming down those stairs and you don't know what it is yet. Is it 20 guys coming to beat you up? Is it someone with a chainsaw? You don't know what it is. So he is building up this terror. And then just a little girl comes down the stairs. And
I felt that.
We wouldn't have been frightened of her unless he was. And if he had just thought, oh, is this little girl coming down the stairs, which he was playing it initially a little bit more like, I'm pissed off, you've inconvenienced me, which is exactly what you would be. But then I said, but of course I didn't want to amp him up by, you know, anyway, you know what I'm saying.
No, I love that you did that, because honestly, that's, even though I kind of even knew from the viewer's perspective what was going on, I felt that he felt that 20 guys were going to come down and beat him up. Like it felt that, it was that, and you created this intensity, which was just The sign of a great thriller, should I say. There you go.
Can I add? He created that intensity.
Yeah, he's
He
a
did
great
it.
actor.
He's
They're
amazing.
both so good. And, you know, and Sarah, it's great to have her with our Q&A because she's, you know, not only is she a great actor, but she's also very, very humble and modest. And I was like, I can't believe you're so humble and modest. You're amazing. So, you know, you had a really good, a really wondrous, you know, a team there as well. I think in New Filmmakers LA history, we've had I mean, I have had so many people that have asked me about your film, celebrating social media about your film. What has the experience been like for you putting, you know, hashtag like out there to us at New Filmmakers, but to festivals? Like, what's that feeling like after you put all your love and heart into this?
It's great. Well, one story I'll tell you after this, but one of the most meaningful things that happened at the Woodstock Film Festival was there was a woman who came from Safe Harbor, which is an organization that protects teens who have been bullied or stalked or have to leave home for a number of reasons. And Safe Harbor is all about that. And she came and she gave it the stamp of approval. She said, this is great. This is a great story about a young woman, and it feels very truthful, even though it's a thriller. So yeah, check out Safe Harbor. She's amazing.
Oh,
but the one thing that happened that was really funny at the premiere, when I'd never seen it with a live audience, was it was at Cinequest. And, you know, I'm all nervous, and Dakota came in and Sarah was there, and we're sitting in the audience, and I'm just sweating bullets. And then the lights go down. We're all just like, oh, all our hard work. And then these two ladies come in. And then these ladies, the kind of ladies who come to the movies with a lot of popcorn and drinks and plastic bags, and they've been shopping, and one comes in and she finally finds a seat, and I'm like, just sit down, just sit down, just sit down. And then the other one comes going, where are you sitting? And I was just like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And I was just like, I wanted to say she's right there, but I didn't want to talk. Finally, they sit down. I'm like, thank goodness they're just sitting down. And then I was just sitting there annoyed, you know?
yeah.
But then the first scary thing happened, and one of them went, oh, and then the other went, oh, don't go there. And I got chills from these ladies. And then I was just like, they were in for the ride. And I loved, after going from like, shut up, ladies, you get both sides of that. And it was a real, yeah, if it had just been like cinephiles, it wouldn't have been as much fun.
Oh, I love, isn't it? And then you're like, this is why I made this film, you know, you know, and you know, respectfully is why, you know, this was, again, as much as it thrilled us, it was coming from a very, you know, true place, and also a subject that needs to be continually emphasized and spoken about and heard in the world of the moving image, because that's how we get to educate and learn about all these different things on top of everything else. What did you kind of want your audience to take from your film? I know there's a lot there, but was there anything particularly you want your audience to kind of take from your film?
Just to, for parents to be aware of their kids can be in their bedroom, they don't know what they're doing, and they don't think they're doing anything naughty, but they are trying to make connection. And we live in a world where, you know, maybe this COVID moment has reconnected families in such a way that will be really helpful for everyone. That could be a very positive outcome from the pause. But for parents to be more aware of what's going on, and for kids to be, you know, a little creeped out enough to go, oh, maybe I shouldn't leave my computer camera uncovered. Maybe I should not talk to that guy who says he's 13, but in fact could be 35, you know. And then the final ending of the film, we had more of a tied up ending, and it just felt a little corny. It felt a little too pat, and I wanted to leave people feeling uncomfortable. So they take away with them, what happened to that girl could have been anyone in her community, or it could have been someone in another country. We don't know who, where, what. So just to be wary and to be mindful of it.
No, most definitely, and that for me, you know, top of our being a wonderfully entertaining film, that for me is the reason why it should be completely seen by everybody everywhere, because it's a universal film, a universal topic of film, and I love that the victim comes out on top, and even more so because she is a female, and it's nice to see just the great strength of just fighting back and the love that you have for someone you may have lost. I thought it was beautiful. What is next for you, Sarah? What's going on next? What's happening?
Well, thank you for asking. So I have 2 series that I'm developing and 2 features, and I'm a writer director, so everything takes a long time. But the most pressing of the moment is, and also a documentary that I told you about. So the most pressing series is coming of age stories set in our old country of England, in London, called The Squatter's Handbook, about a group of misfit political squatters who were not like taking over private homes, but were taking back government housing that had fallen into disrepair, you know the deal, and fixing them up and creating housing co-ops and associations in low-income neighborhoods. And it sounds very granola, but it's not. It's sort of during the era of the early 80s, Brixton riots. You know, there's an interracial love affair. There's the first gay squatting commune, the first gay commune, official commune. That's incredible. That is, you know, there have been historical papers written about it. It was the Revolutionary Fairies in Brixton, who I was good friends with those guys, and they were beautiful. So it's this ensemble thing, and it's great. It's a 5-part limited series. So that's that.
Don't you love Sarah's work? Like, you just want to I already want to see it right now. Like, goodness, I'm like ready.
And then the other thing is something that I shot many years ago that I didn't complete, but I think now is the time to complete it. It's called The Coffee and Cream Club, and it's a documentary about interracial relationships. I come from a family with people of color in my family, and it was always a normal thing for me. And then as I got older, I realized maybe it wasn't for everyone. And then I was sort of fascinated by it. So when I first moved to New York, I interviewed just a bunch of friends. And you know how you're in these cliques, and my clique of friends, you know, at the time was a crew of these very feisty Asian girls who all worked in the music industry, one of whom went on to manage Wu-Tang, you know, and then different filmmakers, and everyone's different in the film. It's white, black, you know, Caribbean, black, Afro-Caribbean, Black American, you know, Korean, Chinese, you know, it's like, and me, the white girl, and other people just talking, a documentary. And so I thought, I put it away. I just wasn't quite sure what to do with it at the time. And then I thought, I'll just do a Michael Apted, and I'll revisit everyone. You know, this was shot in 1995, you know, or 94. I'm going to go back and visit everyone and see.
I can't wait. That's so exciting. Sarah, I adore you, and I adore your work, and I just need you.
Back at you.
We need to just keep enlightening our screens and leading the way for us with your work. You know, it's really fantastic, and I love that your work always has so many layers to it as well, which is just great, because it just takes you on an amazing journey. So I'm very thankful for you. I'm very thankful to #like you. Please have to follow the journey of this film, because it's going to be everywhere soon. So I hope it comes to everybody that's witnessing this interview right now. But thank you very much for your film, Sarah. We really appreciate you.
It's been an honor. Thank you. An honor and a pleasure. Thank you all, to Omar and everyone in the background there, and Andrew.
Thank you very much.